Hello, this is Virtualis the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. The Evans Gambit is named after Captain William Evans from the 19th century. The Gambit is an aggressive line for white in the otherwise quiet game of the Giuoco Piano. Generally, it's a gambit that needs to be accepted by black, as it's worse to decline the gambit. However, for the capture of the pawn, white now has a potential lead in development and can immediately launch an attack for the center. The goal for the player of the black pieces, me in this game, is to try to hold onto the material advantage, something that isn't necessarily easy to do. So let's start having a look at the review first. So this is chess.com's algorithm. Didn't do too badly, 83.2% accuracy, some good moves, one blunder, which we'll see sort of in context later. I'm reasonably happy with this game, and I made an early got an early advantage, almost lost it, but prevailed in the end. Now let's have a look at the analysis. All right, so I played black and the opponent white, and the opponent started with e4, e5. They develop knight to f3. I respond with knight to c6. So all very standard Italian game at the moment. Bishop to c4, bishop to c5, and now we have the Evans Gambit with pawn to b4. And the logic here is that once I capture, the opponent can now push their c pawn to c3, threatening the bishop. The bishop will have to retreat or needs to move out of the way, and then the opponent has an immediate attack on the center with d4. Now, in the Evans Gambit, it's actually bad for black to not accept the gambit. So pretty much this is a forced line. So this is potentially quite a good gambit for white. And I believe even AlphaZero can plays the Evans Gambit. So captures the pawn to c3. Now, at this point, there are a number of possibilities for black. So the main line is bishop to a5, but the bishop can also go to c5, can go to d6, can go to e7, and even potentially f8, though undeveloping the bishop all the way back to the its opening square is probably not the best approach. Now, as I said, the main line is bishop to a5. However, I've come to play the Anderssen variation, or Lasker's defense, which is to bring the bishop back to e7, and this is actually quite a safe option. It's perfectly fine for black, and it's something that's a little bit unexpected for white. And I often find that this gives me some good positions. The opponent immediately attacks with d4, and in this position captures. Now, one of the goals for white in the Evans Gambit is to try to get queen to b3, lining up the queen and the bishop into a battery, targeting the weak pawn on f7. So potentially one of the things that can be done is to move the knight to the a5 square, which prevents that queen move. Now, in this case, what I did was, rather than immediately doing that, I thought that I could try to force some trade in pieces and potentially change the way the opponent sets up their attack, and potentially thinking that this might be a line that the opponent has not planned. So I expected them to develop the bishop to block, and it's interesting. This is all still theory. Captures. Now they have to capture back with the queen, which means the queen cannot easily get to this square without wasting oops, sorry, cannot easily get to this square without without wasting a move. So I was happy with that transformation. I develop my knight with the expectation I could potentially castle. The opponent now moves their queen out to still attack the f7 square. I castle to provide a defender to the f7 square with the rook, and this move d5 with the pawn blocking the bishop. I didn't see at this point, but I do see with the next move. Now the opponent brings their knight to the party, but now I saw that that d5 was very powerful. So with d5, the opponent is forced to really to capture, but then with capturing back with the knight with an attack on the queen, meaning that yeah, so this is potentially a powerful move. If they capture, queen now captures back and ending pretty much the attack by white. So captures, 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 and I think I've survived the opening. And importantly, I've been able to maintain that 1 point of material advantage. And I feel at this point that the opponent's potential material advantage, potential advantage with development is completely lost. And that's the case here. So black is substantially ahead now. So I was very happy to have been able to achieve that. Not to mention, no, there is an attack on that g2 pawn. Opponent castles, which makes sense. I capture that pawn. The queen is defended by the knight, inviting a queen trade. The opponent obliges. Again, very happy with this position. Now, at this point, I was actually not entirely sure of the best way to play. I was sure I was ahead, but the best moves were not so clear to me. And I do eventually end up losing some of my advantage. So captures, captures. Again, happy to trade pieces. I was trying to invite piece trades. Now that, however, doesn't work. Now I absolutely need to capture that rook. So that's an absolute requirement. Given if I don't do that, opponent captures. I'm forced to capture back. Captures again, back rank mate. You know, it's never too late to hang back rank mate. So captures, captures. And my goal now was to try to see whether I could get the king off the back rank. Push that pawn forward. Push it forward again. The opponent with a potential fork. So move the bishop out of the way, also protecting that pawn. Now I've got the king off the back rank, so I've now got some bit of freedom with moving that rook. Rook trying to attack the pawn on b7. And here I made a mistake. The most obvious move here is simply to develop the pawn to b5. Now obviously, I'm perfectly happy with some transformations like that, but instead I decided to straight up attack the knight. I think my logic here was I was happy to trade pieces, but I do then end up losing a pawn in the process. And as you can see, Stockfish, it was a pretty big blunder. Still slightly ahead, but getting almost back to equality. All right, so now I needed to transform this position. I still felt that I had good chances here, given that I had more pawns than the opponent, but it's not so easy. This has become a sort of rook and pawn end game. There we go. So pretty happy with that. Now with the sort of the majority here, I felt that unless the opponent made an error, I should be able to potentially force a promotion. And the king is tucked in tight here. Very difficult for the opponent to attack. That's fine. Now advance the pawn. And this was an error for the opponent. I think the opponent was thinking they had two attackers here, but it doesn't really work because I can just push the pawn forward again. The opponent gets a little bit greedy. However, it's too late. Now I'm on the 7th rank. Pretty much a trade of the rook for either a pawn or potentially promotion is unavoidable now at this point. The opponent sees the writing on the wall and so chooses to resign. GG. I don't usually play Evans Gambit, as when playing with the white pieces, I prefer the Vienna game. However, it is fairly popular and I have played against it a few times as black. I was happy with my performance in this game, and usually I play Anderssen variation, also known as Lasker's defense, after accepting the gambit by retreating the bishop to e7. This isn't the most popular response to the Evans Gambit accepted, and as such might catch some Evans Gambit players off guard. The insight here is to try to learn one line that you can control well. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.